shooting film is like technology going backwards. Why contribute to that? Let's be honest, there's no shortage of digital photographers out there. In fact, you may be one yourself, that just hate film. In fact, they're always in the forums and they're always bashing film photographers, talking about film being antiquated and it's just out of date and move on, get back to digital. Well, there's a lot of reasons that we choose to stick with film. I think many digital photographers feel left out. You know, maybe they weren't around in the film days, and maybe they've never had an opportunity to shoot film. In fact, I think a lot of these people have never had any exposure to film, no pun intended, whatsoever. So they really don't know. But yet, when you're just kind of looking at it from a technology perspective, yeah, film seems out of date. It's antiquated. Well, if we're talking about pixel peeping, 35 millimeter film, yeah, is the resolution the same as 35 millimeter digital? No. I mean, digital is better in low light. There's no doubt about that. There's things like focus stacking, blending images together. It's harder to do with the analog photography than it is with digital photography. There's a number of reasons and technical reasons why we should stick with digital, and maybe digital is better than film. However, there's also a lot of reasons to stick with film. I realize that we could compare shooting RAW, and RAW's better than film, and negatives, they expire over time, and well, yeah, you can scan your negatives, you can even use Negative Lab Pro and archive your images and create RAW files out of your film shots. So there's a lot of reasons, a lot of things to consider when it comes to comparing digital and film. So why do so many digital photographers hate film? Well, there's lots of reasons, and I'm going to name them. One is film is expensive. There's no doubt you're going to pay top dollar for film, and you're going to spend some money developing your film. There's no doubt about that. Film is pricey, the development's pricey. If you're scanning your images, it's a lot more work. A lot goes into shooting film compared to walking up to a scene and pulling out your digital camera, just taking some shots. Film requires a lot of thought. I mean, you're exposing a negative, and once it's exposed, it's over. So you got to put a lot of thought into it. Look, I'm not saying you don't have to put a lot of thought into digital, because you do. And remember, I'm a digital photographer too, and I put a lot of thought into my images. But film has a steep learning curve, especially if you've never experienced film. You have no experience at all with film. You're going to be in for a little bit of learning. But in my opinion, it's well worth it. Honestly, I think one of the biggest reasons that a lot of digital photographers have problems with film, especially, not to pick on the younger generation, but let's just be honest, it's instant gratification, and you don't have that with film. Everything's delayed. You have to wait to get your film back from the lab, or even if you develop it yourself, you might not be ready to develop it, and you might have to wait on some chemicals to come in. I mean, you might be going to a dark room somewhere else, and you have to wait for that. So there is a wait with film, whether you develop at home or not, but you certainly don't have that instant gratification. And with digital, and I'll tell you, I like it too. I'm right with them on it. When I take a digital image, and I can look at it on the back of that camera, I know I've captured the image, I know I've got the exposure, I haven't blown out my highlights, and I know what I have in the bag, and it's instant gratification. Another reason that a lot of digital photographers steer away from film is, well, it's the gear. A lot of the film gear is used and old and ancient, and there's not a lot of new options on the market, although I think that's coming in the future. But nevertheless, you got to deal with that. Plus, a lot of people like to print their images. I, for one, I love printing my images. And with film, you know, I mean, there's not a lot of people using enlargers anymore. I know there's still a few of you out there enlarging images. I would love to do it too. I'd love to have a huge dark room. I would so engross myself in this. But, you know, right now, just not an option. And I'm going to be honest with you. Printing the final product, that's everything for me. So I have to take my film and I have to develop it, and I have to scan it, digitize it, and then print it. So you could make the argument that, well, you should just shoot a digital image. It's easier in today's world. And maybe that's the case, but we're missing a very important aspect, the process. The process is very important. It's more about the art of photography for me than it is about the technical side of it. I mean, does it really matter to me whether it's a film camera, or does it matter to me whether it's digital? In the end, as I mentioned before, I'm looking for that final product. And I think that regardless of what it is, I can take film or I can take a digital image, and if I can make a print that I'm happy with, that's the key for me. One thing I will say that I think gets a lot of people is mainstream whatever. They just go with the flow. And I think sometimes we don't realize that. I made a video a little while back about biased YouTubers kind of influencing us. And the truth is that, yeah, if we're biased towards something, we can influence others towards our own biases. And I really try to be conscious of that and aware of that. And certainly on this channel, when I make recommendations, I really try to think this through. But remember, as I said, I'm a digital photographer too, and I'm a film photographer. And although it's all about the process for me, the getting up early, the getting to location, the sun just breaking the horizon, the light, the warm colors, the beautiful sky. I love it. I love it so. I truly do. And whatever I capture that with really doesn't matter. But the process of capturing it matters. And film slows me down. I know some people disagree with this, but there's a lot to film. But in digital, look, it doesn't matter to me. In fact, I made a video on digital versus film photography. You should really check that one out. It covers a couple good points about film and about digital. But don't be swayed by popularity or whatever swinging in the direction of popularity might not be the best thing. I think we have to look at things as individuals and make up our own mind. You should check out that video anyway. I'll leave a link in the video description. Information on YouTube and anywhere else, it's information, and we should use the information to make up our own minds and our own decisions. But I will say this about film photographers, and maybe this can kind of separate the difference between digital and film, or maybe help those that are maybe hating on film. The question is, why do film photographers go the extra mile? Why do we forego the instant gratification and wait long periods for our film to get back and spend all this extra time and money and equipment to take a film image, an analog image, make it digital? For those of you that are printing in your darkroom on an enlarger, I understand. I wish I was doing that too. But anyway, why do we do all that? What's the point? Why go through all that when you can just capture a digital image and call it a day? Well, it's, for me, the process. It's the feel of the camera, the sound of the shutter, the mirror flipping up, the art of capturing the exposure and using a light meter to detect whether your exposure is going to be spot on or whether you're going to be off, and making decisions with the clouds quickly approaching and fast moving skies, wind gusts coming in, and putting this together in just seconds and then capturing that image. It's the process. And if you're lucky enough, you're rewarded with a fantastic image that you can print out later. And you know what? Whether it's on an enlarger or whether it's a digital print, remember, it's all about the process, at least for me anyway. Well, I don't know if I was able to deliver my message, but I gave it a heck of a shot. But anyway, remember, I wasn't trying to sway you to shoot film, but rather explain why some of us enjoy film and what it is about film. Anyway, I hope I was able to do that. But don't forget to watch those videos I mentioned. And if I don't see you down the road, maybe I'll see you on the trail somewhere.